Welcome back. Now I want to talk about cognitive distortions. CBT techniques are designed to help people overcome their faulty programming. You see, we all have common ways that our thoughts process are dysfunctional, called cognitive distortions. See, these inaccurate thoughts reinforce negative thinking patterns and emotions and convince us of a reality that is simply just not true. See, it can be liberating just hearing about these distortions, because once you recognize that the reality you assume isn't necessarily 100% accurate, you can open up to greater possibilities. Even people who pride themselves on being critical thinkers can get stuck in these traps. So we'll go over them in the video, and then techniques and activities we'll explore in the rest of the course will help provide methods for overcoming these limitations. So the first one I want to take a look at is one called all or nothing, or polarized thinking. See, this distortion is also known as black and white thinking, and occurs when a person is not able to see the gray areas of any situation. In other words, the person may not be able to or willing to see that there may be other factors or different options in any situation. So it's either or. Therefore, they stay stuck between two extremes, which makes them hard to compromise with others or make decisions in their own lives. For example, everything is either perfect or everything's either awful. So there's not room for all the emotions and experiences that can come in between. Another example may be a person that fails in something may think that they're a total failure without recognizing that they maybe just need to improve in an area in their life, and that single failure does not define them and their capabilities of who they are and what they can achieve. Another one is overgeneralization. So in this distortion, a person overgeneralizes things in their life, such as defining a single experience as an overall pattern. For example, a person may have a misunderstanding while communicating with a friend, and then assume that they're just bad at communicating with everyone. They may even generalize further and believe that they're disliked by everyone. Therefore, this bias leads to negative thoughts about the person's life in general based on maybe one or maybe two experiences that they feel define them. In other words, a single incident is used as evidence to really conclude something. The biggest challenge with overgeneralizing is that we may define our abilities or characteristics based on one experience and then stop trying in the future situations because of it. Because of that one experience, again, we put this whole emphasis on what we're capable of doing. The next one is jumping to conclusion. This can look like making assumptions or mind reading. See, this distortion happens when we assume what the other person is thinking or what their intentions are. We become that mind reader. It's true that at times we may have a general idea of why a person may do something, but we usually don't really acknowledge that our assumptions may be wrong. Therefore, we may see someone in their nonverbal reaction, going like this, and assume that they may not be interested in what we have to say, where they may actually simply be distracted with something else in their life. They might not even be fully there, present in the now. See, we may even think that they are thinking something negative about us, when the truth may be far from reality. Our predictions and conclusions are typically based on our own biases instead of reality. We may even conclude that our fear may come true and avoid a situation before we even have a chance to find out. The next one is magnification or catastrophizing or minimization. See, this distortion is when you exaggerate the meaning of something, or in other extremes, you minimize it. For example, a person may make a mistake at work and may magnify that mistake to make it seem like they will ruin the project that the company is working on. At the same time, a person may get an award for something and minimize it and still believe that they're still not good enough. This leads people to always look at worst cases scenarios. The next one is emotional reasoning. This is an important distortion that people must identify and address because it's common. Emotional reasoning is when we take our emotions as a fact. In other words, if we feel it, then it must be true, right? And we find reasons to justify it. For example, if we feel dumb or unattractive in our current moment, then we believe it must be an overall fact of who we are. We feel that way, therefore it must be real, right? However, the truth is that our emotional state is in a given moment on a specific topic is rarely indicative of reality. Unfortunately, for many, it is difficult to see the past or current emotional state and what reality really is. The next one is should statements. So another common distortion is should statements. You may have noticed times when you are telling yourself that you should do this, should not do that, or must do this other thing. The truth about should statements is that they're always based on what we think others around us believe we should do, rather than what we truly want. The problem is we often create shoulds and expectations for ourselves that are unrealistic and hard to meet, and then we beat ourselves up over them. And worse, we don't even actually believe them, and we're doing it for everyone else. This leads us to making decisions that don't benefit us short-term or long-term. See, at the same time, we also place shoulds and expectations on other people. So when they do not meet our requirements, it may lead to anger and resentment. And we talk about shoulds more in the Awareness of Self-Talk Part 2 video. So if anything, just make sure that you stop shoulding on yourself. Another one is labeling and mislabeling. This is another form of overgeneralization, a tendency to assign a judgment or label based on a single event or instant. We allow the event to define ourselves or others. If you're golfing and you miss your putt and lose, you tell yourself, I'm such a loser, instead of simply, I goofed up in this one. This happens and therefore I am that. You can also label others. For instance, if you meet someone that does not say hello right away, you may label them as mean person who just doesn't like you. When in reality, the person may have been distracted and has nothing to do with you. So not only did you assume the person's intentions, you judged and labeled them. See, with labeling, you're overgeneralizing a single trait as the main definition of yourself or another person. See, mislabeling, on the other hand, is when you apply a label that is not just overgeneralized, it's an inaccurate and usually uses highly emotional, exaggerated language. For example, calling yourself someone else a pig. Again, it's using that strong terminology to kind of reinforce it. The next one is personalization. This distortion is also a common one that many people can relate to and have experienced at some point or another in their life. See, this one involves us taking things personally and blaming ourselves for something in an illogical way. For instance, you may believe someone's acting a certain way because of you when it has nothing to do with you. In extreme cases, you may assume that you are the cause of the moods and behaviors of all those people around you. When bad things happen around you, you think it's your fault. For example, if you're late to a meeting and then the meeting is a disaster, you may tell yourself that everything would have been fine if you would have got there early, when in reality, is that the outcome had nothing to do with you and the meeting was already leading to becoming a disaster.